All right, ladies, if you guys want to come on over and make sure you're in close here so you can hear everything that you need to hear. First, I think I've met everybody here. If you don't know, I'm Coach Micheal Burt. I want to welcome you to our new lodge, and we're really excited about this place. Obviously, for those of you that are in Monster Producer, you constantly hear me talking about create structures for people to exchange with each other. And what I mean by that is exchange energy, exchange knowledge, exchange resources, exchange ideas. So when I see a property like this and we have the opportunity to purchase it, I'm like, this is it's 20 minutes from where we live, and this is a perfect place for our people to come together for events like this. So I want to thank you for coming tonight. This is just one of many things that we're going to do here. Social events, coaching sessions that we'll be talking about, private retreats. Obviously, anytime you want to rent this for an event for you or for a party, we've got people looking at it for all kinds of things, whether it be everything from weddings to events to anything. So this is a great place for you to do some things. So I want to thank you for that. Now, probably about 2 years ago we got a phone call into our office one day from a person in Houston, Texas that we had never met before. And it was the president of Hotze Health and Wellness. And she had walked into a bookstore in Houston, a Barnes & Noble, and she picked up a copy of my book, Everybody Needs a Coach in Life. Okay, so if you ever think about writing a book and you say, well, is it worth it? This whole story is going to make this worth it, okay? So she walked into the bookstore, she picked up a copy of Everybody Needs a Coach in Life. She resonated with that book because we believe the same thing, that people who have a good coach in their life will always perform at a much higher level. She picked up the phone to call all of us for me to come to speak at one of their retreats, one of their leadership retreats, and I could hear this person in the background, like, get him here next week, get him here next week. We're doing something. I'm like, who is that? Oh, and that's Dr. Hotze, right? Dr. Hotze's like, get her out to speak. Let's get Coach Burt here next week. And obviously, when you have a busy schedule, getting somewhere the next week is tough, right? So, but I loved his enthusiasm and I loved his energy, and I told the people on my team, put me on a plane and let me go spend a day with this doctor, because and we spent a day together, and since then have formed a very, very strong partnership with each other. I go to Houston every single month. I work with Dr. Hotze. I work with his executive team, his sales team, and as I was there coaching them, I began to learn about the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. So I had these long conversations with Dr. Hotze. We'd go to dinner at the Capitol Grill. So if you ever take him out to dinner, there's one place in Houston he likes to go. That's the Capitol Grill. And everybody at the Capitol Grill knows who Dr. Hotze is, right? Because that's his place. But as we would have these long conversations, I began to really understand what the special is of what he brings to the table. And he said it to me very simply. He said, Coach, as you age, your body naturally begins to decline. And it quits producing things it needs to be successful. Now, every person here wants to do big things in their life. You got big dreams, you got big goals, you got big ambitions, you got families to tend to. You have all of these things you want to do, and you're not going to be able to do those things, if you don't have the drive to go do it. You're not going to be able to do these things if you don't have the energy to go do it. And so I began saying, man, I get tired in the afternoons. I get home and I got a beautiful 6-year-old daughter. If you haven't seen my princess right there, okay, this is the woman running the house, right, sweetheart? That's right. So I go to work 12, 14, 16-hour days, and man, when I get home, then it's time to be with my family, my wife and my daughter. And so I just started saying, man, I don't have the energy that I need. I'm 42 years old, but I need to really go out there and I need to hit it hard, and I need to be able to come home and be a good dad and a good husband. And so Dr. Hotze began to explain to me, well, you're probably low on this and you're probably old on this. And everybody always talks to me about my energy. Like, oh, you got all this energy, you got all this energy. Well, when I went to the Hotze Health and Wellness Center, I found out that I was low on all kinds of things. I was getting tired in the afternoons. I was fatiguing out. I didn't have my mojo sometimes. You understand what I'm saying? And so I just said, and so I became a guest at Hotze Health and Wellness Center, and Natalie, my wife, is now a guest. Derek Godwin is a guest. His wife is a guest, and we go there, from time. I go there every month, but it's just a very different experience. It's really benchmarked like versus the Ritz-Carlton, and I'll be at the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. and I feel like I'm not at a doctor's office. I feel like I'm at the Ritz-Carlton. You understand what I'm saying? So what Dr. Hotze has done in the form of revolutionizing healthcare, his stance and philosophy on how the body works, on energy, on really doing a 180 in your life, is really, really, really powerful. And you can see testimonials. 31,000 people have gone to him and his Hotze and Health and Wellness Center over the last, how many years, General?
Almost 30, 29 years.
29 years. 31,000 people is a lot of people.
We're in our 30th year.
A lot of people. So I would tell you now, my energy's at a much higher level. I'm clicking on every cylinder. I got my levels where they need to be. I'm on the program. Natalie's on the program. Derek and Meredith's on the program. We got a lot of monster producers. Eric Hensley just got back from going. We just had another monster producer there yesterday, Dylan Stevens, who is in monster producer. So there's a lot of people going there. So I'm just honored to call Dr. Hotze a good friend. We're in a series called Game Changer. And I'm telling you, since I met this man, he's not only just a game changer, he's a life changer. And he's helped a lot of people, and so I'm thrilled that he and I are going to be on a 3-day tour over the next 3 days. Tonight here with you, tomorrow night we're going to be in Knoxville, and then Thursday we're going to NugaCon, speaking at NugaCon in Chattanooga. So please help me welcome Dr. Stephen Hotze.
Thank you. Coach, thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I can close after that. Great to be here in the Nashville area, because I know that if you're like other women groups that I've met with, and male groups too, but women are a whole lot more attuned to their health than men are. We'll talk about that, why that's the case. There are a lot of you here that are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And you've been told by your physicians, after you've gone and you've read something in Ladies' Home Journal, you read some in some magazine, Reader's Digest, if they even still read that. Is that still out anymore? I grew up on Reader's Digest. But there's always an article about hypothyroidism, low thyroid condition. And I don't know whether any of you all have recently read anything about it, but if you're like most women at some point, you go like, maybe it's hypothyroidism. You begin to read these stories in the magazines about it, and you got a list of symptoms. You've got the symptoms, you've got low energy, you've got difficulty with weight, you can't think clearly, you're cold, you got cold body temperature, you don't sleep well, your joints ache, you got digestive problems, your hair's falling out, you're puffy and pale, you've got no romantic moods and inclinations at all, and you just say, something's got to be wrong with me. You go to the doctor, you've done this probably, and Doc, I mean, while you're getting the test, could I get a thyroid test? Why do you think you need a thyroid test? Well, I was reading in Ladies, or I was on the internet? No, they should never let people like you on the internet, because you're going to learn about stuff you don't know about. I'm the doctor. You don't. Well, couldn't you just? The insurance doesn't cover the thyroid test. Well, how much is it? It's $50. I'll pay for it. So they draw a thyroid test for you. And you wait because you say, maybe this is my problem. Maybe I just need a little thyroid. Which, of course, what does thyroid do? It stimulates energy production within your cells. It is the key hormone of energy and increasing your body's metabolism. So you wait. You got the blood tested, and you wait, no call. Week later, no call. You call up Dr. Jones's office, press 1 if you need an appointment, press 2 for insurance, press 3 if you need to talk to a nurse, press 4 if you want to have lab values, you want to talk to a live person, call back. We're closed, we'll be open at 2, so you call back. You call back. Finally, you get a nurse on the line, and she goes, well, I've got some good news for you, Becky, or Sue, or Mickey, I got some great news for you. Your blood tests were normal. Or you go back in to see the doctor and follow up and said, I told you your blood tests were normal. Anybody ever heard that? Your blood tests are normal. But doctor, I don't feel well. Has anybody ever been told their blood test was normal? Raise your hand. Huh? And so, and then he says, you got these symptoms, I think, Nurse Betty, could you bring some Prozac, please? Let's give her some, we can get you on some samples of Prozac. or Paxil or Effexor or Lexapro, because guess what? You ladies are just crazy. That's what it is. That's what they're telling you. That's what I learned in medical school. Did you know that? When I went back in the old days, because I'm 68 now, and I graduated from medical school in 1976, July 30th, 76, University of Texas Med School in Houston. And I was a contrarian back then. I failed my first cycle in psychiatry. I was a Christian. I didn't believe a word these guys said. They want to put everybody on drugs. They had all kinds of, for people that were acting irresponsibly, they gave them diagnosis, and it was never their problem. They had some disease. Nobody was ever responsible for their actions. That just hit me wrong, and I fought them on that. And they tried to throw me out of med school because of my psychiatrist. They wanted me out of there. And I told the Lord, I prayed about it when I had to go in and talk to him. I said, Lord, if you want me to stay in med school, I'm going to stand up for you in front of these guys. And if you don't want me here, that's fine. I'll give up med school for that. And guess what? The surgeons took up for me, and they liked me. So they kept me in there. And I had to repeat psychiatry my next to last month in medical school, 4th year. I had to, if I don't pass that, these guys can go after me. And so we had kind of a truce. They didn't challenge me. I didn't challenge them. Everybody just kind of hung in. So I graduated on July 30th, 1976. My dad took me to dinner. We had a big dinner. I'm the oldest of 7 children, 8 boys. My wife and I have 8 children, 7 living, all married with 23 grandchildren. I wanted Janie to be here tonight. I wish you could have seen her or see her. She's marvelous, marvelous woman. We just got back from the Holy Land a week ago Sunday, and I'll mention that in a minute. And if you haven't gone, you need to go. That's an amazing trip. Anyway, at dinner, my dad told me we had a banquet. We were at the Houston Club, and he said, son, I said, yes, sir. He said, son, don't poison your patients like all the other doctors do. My dad was a very successful entrepreneur, very successful in business. And his business is still running, and I'm part owner of that business. It's in the oil and gas business in Houston. But he planted that seed in my brain. That seed that was planted, like, don't poison your patients like all the other doctors do. So I decided, I did a year internship in surgery. We had 4 kids at that time. I said, I got to make some money. I went into emergency medicine for 5 years, then opened up a family medical practice in Houston. And 12 years later, fast forward, a little lady came in to see me who had been a guest of mine for years, and she was living at a retirement center. Her name was Miss Jones. And I was first patient in the morning. It was in February or March of 1988. I said, how are you doing? I'm sitting down in a chair like this, looking at her sitting at me, and she had this big smile on her face. I'd never seen any of the patients I have come in there smile. They were all sick. They didn't feel good. She had this big smile. I said, well, how are you doing? So she said, Dr. Hotze, ever since I threw away all the medicine you were giving me, I feel like $1 million. And you know what came back to me? Don't poison your patients like all the other doctors. I said to myself, this woman is smarter than I am. All the other doctors I know, all the other patients I know, she knows these medicines are poisons. And she's right. Did you know that all pharmaceutical drugs are toxins? How do we know that? The first year in medical school, I had to take pharmacology. There's a chapter on the book of detoxification of pharmaceutical drugs. Detoxify means to make something that's a toxin not a toxin. Has to go through your liver. That's the detox organ. What's the definition of toxin? Look it up in Webster's. What's the first definition of a toxin? Poison. Oh, so I'm going to give you a toxin and make you better. I'm going to poison you to good health. That's conventional medicine. I totally reject that. I rejected it then. And shortly thereafter, my dad came in, and he had a problem with some chest pain. This is in November of '88. He said, I'm having this chest pain. What do you think? I said, Dad, it sounds like it's angina, due to poor blood flow in the heart. Let's take you over to see a cardiologist. So went over to the hospital, took him to a cardiologist friend of mine. he put him in the hospital, and they do an arteriogram, so he's got a blocked left anterior descending artery, and my dad at that time was 72. We needed to do angioplasty, so the next day they did angioplasty on him, and I'm sitting down in a chair looking at the EKG. There's a big window, and the angioplasty is taking place like on that couch there. They're doing the procedure on him. I'm watching the beats, and then all of a sudden, I went, holy cow. They've blown open his left anterior descending artery. So I called up my friend Bob Feltman, his cardiovascular, said, Bob, get over here. He's on backup. They just blew open his LAD, left anterior descending artery. So he came over, did emergency surgery. He survived the surgery. He lived, but he had a lot of damage to his heart because the blood flow had stopped to that heart when they blew it open. I mean, that's the main artery to the left ventricle. So he had a big dead area in his heart, and he ended up having congestive heart failure and all that. But he got out of the hospital. 2 weeks after he's out of the hospital, I get a phone call one Saturday morning. Son, yes, sir, I want you to come over. I want to talk to you. Well, he was not in a good mood. And I felt terrible because I had recommended him to go to my friends, and this happened to him, so I felt responsible. So I get over there, and he goes, my dad was an engineer. Took engineering, graduated from OU back in 35. And he was pacing, going, I don't know what the Sam Hill I was thinking. Let these doctors invade my body. I'm an engineer. I should know better. I've got a calcified artery. How are they going to stretch my calcified artery? They put pressure on it. It's like a pipeline. We work in the oil and gas pipeline field. It's like one of the gas pipelines. You put pressure on it. When it's got a crack, it's going to blow. I said, Dad, I'm so sorry. And then he handed me a newsletter. He said, read this. It's a newsletter from somebody by the name of Dr. Julian Whitaker, who's out of California. And I said, I read it, and it was about heart disease. This is 1988, and here was the statistics. If you have angioplasty after you have a heart attack, you have a 15% chance of dying in the first year. If you have bypass surgery, you have 5% chance of dying. If you don't do anything but lose weight, exercise, eat healthy, take vitamins, and keep your blood pressure under control, you only have a 1% chance of dying. Don't let the doctors invade your body. And so Dad said, what do you think? And I said, Dad, I wish we would have tried this. If we had have, he said, well, this doctor says I need vitamins. What should I take? Dad, I'm a doctor. What do I know about vitamins? Now, is that a sad commentary or what? And so he looked at me and he goes, would you find out, please? I said, yes, sir, I will. So that's my dad's adversity, and we say this all the time. At every adversity, there's a seed of equal or greater benefit if you will look for it. And so my dad's heart problems led me to say, I'm going to find out what's going on. There's got to be something else going on here. And most doctors who get into alternative and natural approaches to health have either had health problems themselves or they've had loved ones that have had health problems that conventional medicine failed to solve. And so they went and began to either treat themselves naturally or their loved one, and they got well, and they went, oh my gosh, if they got well, then what about all these other patients like them? They may get well too. So I started to go to conferences. I went back and went to an allergy conference, and I learned about vitamins and minerals at the allergy conference and how to treat airborne and food allergies and how to treat for yeast. I'd never heard about that before, but all these guys were getting people well that I saw in my office every day with asthma, chronic sinus infections, ear problems, sore throats, eczema, stomach disorders, joint muscle aches and pains, all this stuff. They were getting resolved by treating with allergy and using vitamins and minerals and treating for yeast. So I decided, well, I guess I'm going to try to do that. I went to the head of the society and I said, Dr. Willoughby, I want to learn how to get people well. You cure people, you get them well. Would you teach me? He said, sure, come up to my office in Kansas City. And I went up and I trained under him and brought his methods back. And I set up the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. And I said, I'm going to cookbook what Dr. Willoughby does. And I did it, and all of a sudden people got well. And they started telling other people about it. And then a friend of mine said, at one conference in 1992, Dr. Dick Mabry said, Hotze. I said, yeah. He said, you know, you got a lot of women that have thyroid problems in your practice. I said, I do? Yeah, you do. A lot of them. What have they got? They have autoimmune thyroiditis, antibodies of the thyroid gland. Really? So how do you test for that? We used to do a blood test for that. Really? I didn't know that. What do I do if they have that? Well, give them Armour thyroid, give them desiccated thyroid. I went, okay. So just to double check, Dick Mabry, Dr. Mabry, who was an OB-GYN doctor, saw lots of women, okay? Didn't see many men in that line of work. That's supposed to be a joke. So anyway, I went to the head of the society, Dr. Dor Brown, in Fredericksburg, Texas. This guy was 84. He was esteemed all over the country in allergy and in treatment of natural approaches to health. People came from all over the country and the world to see him. I said, Dr. Brown, Dr. Mabry said, I got a lot of women with thyroid problems. He said, you do? What should I treat them with, synthetic thyroid or natural thyroid, desiccated thyroid, Armour thyroid? He said, Armour thyroid. I said, why? Because it works. That made sense. It works. So what we found is what many of you have probably found is that there were a whole lot of people that had signs and symptoms of hypothyroidism who were going undiagnosed because their conventional doctors relied strictly on blood tests. If your blood was, oh, your blood's in the normal range. Well, sir, everybody's blood's in the normal range except for 5% of the people. This is how they determine what the normal range is. The doctor doesn't determine it, the lab does. They get the last 1,000 blood tests, and who gets their thyroid checked? The kids, young people get their thyroid checked? No, it's a bunch of people that are middle-aged and older getting their thyroid checked because they think they got a low thyroid because they have all the symptoms. So it's already going to be low. If they take the average and they take a statistical term called 2 standard deviations. When you do that, that means the range incorporates 95% of the people. You follow me? 95% of the people will always fall within the range. So it's as tall as the Empire State Building, as wide as the Grand Canyon. You can't be hardly out of that range. If you're out of the range, I mean, you're bad off, really bad off. So anyway, and that only measures what's in your blood. Thyroid doesn't do anything in your blood. It's got to get into your cells. And in your cells, you've got power plants called, anybody know what the word is? Mitochondria. Good. We got some people that were good biology students. Those are power plants that produce electrical energy within our cells, and we got to produce energy to be alive. People that produce high levels of energy function really well. People that are low energy producers don't function well. They don't think well. They can't lose weight. They're fatigued. They're tired. They get sick. They don't enjoy life. They get depressed. Their menstrual cycles get all screwed up, and they just feel terrible because they don't produce energy. You want to produce a lot of energy. You want to be a live wire like Coach Burt. You want to be a live wire. And that's what I want for everybody we work with, is to be live wires. Well, so how does the mitochondria produce energy? And it produces electrical energy. We all are a bunch of electrons floating around. Do you know that? When you go in and get an EKG, that's an electrocardiogram. We're measuring electrical current in your heart. You get your brain checked, you get electroencephalogram. We check the brain waves in your, it's all electrical. We're electrical. We produce electrical energy. So the nutrients come in, the hormones come in, the vitamins come into that power plant, and they produces energy. Oh, but we also get other things that come in. We breathe, what we breathe, eat, drink, and slather on our bodies, and women are worse at this than men, are full of petrochemicals. And petrochemicals are toxic to the mitochondria, to the power plants. And if I took and drew blood on any one of you all, or every one of you all, you will have toxic hydrocarbons in your body. Because you're breathing it, you're eating it, it's in the food. They got petrochemicals in the food, in the soda water, in your lotions. I asked my wife about 3 years ago, I said, baby, what is this lotion? What do you got here? I read it had I don't know how many petrochemical names she had on it. She said, well, that's my body lotion. I said, baby, that's going to point, here, I'm a health and wellness doctor, and you're putting this on your skin? And we've got it at our pharmacy. We've got natural oils and natural creams and everything that doesn't have any of this. So that causes a problem. You've got to detoxify that. So what happens is we have the petrochemicals. You have metals from like mercury amalgams. You cook in aluminum. You got lead somewhere in the environment and other metals. Plus a high sugar diet. Now that doesn't mean you're eating sugar. That means you're eating a lot of grains. You're eating a lot of grain products, pizza, pasta, cookie, cakes, rolls, pancakes, waffles, you name it, all those things. Plus you may be having corn, which is another grain, or you have rice, or you have potatoes. All those are carbohydrates that quickly get converted to sugar, and sugar is highly inflammatory in the body. And when you have high sugar levels, those sugar bind to proteins all over your body, in your brain, in your pancreas, in your heart, in your kidneys, in your joints. That's why people that have a high grain diet, which 70% of Americans eat a high grain diet, and 70% of our calories in America come from grain products. And those sugar binds to the protein. Some of you have had your protein checked in your blood. Your sugar protein is called, your glycolated hemoglobin is called A1C. So if a doctor wants to check if you're pre-diabetic, they'll do an A1C. And that measures the amount of sugar that binds onto the hemoglobin, which is your red blood cell. And that'll show you what's been going on for 3 months. But it binds to all over your body, it's binding. So when you have high sugar levels, then you get inflammation in your arteries, and that's where you get coronary artery disease, and you get high blood pressure, and you get cancer, and you get dementia, and you get kidney disorders, and you get arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis can be cured if you just eliminate your grain products. About 80% of the cases, completely eliminated. You don't have to go on methotrexate and all these drugs, anti-inflammatories. Those anti-inflammatory drugs increase your risk of heart attacks. Vioxx, some of y'all may have taken that in the old days. The reason they took it off the market back in 2004 is because it killed 50,000 people a year from heart attacks, but they didn't have any joint pain. That's what the doctor said. So the problems that you may have experienced have underlying causes. When you go to the doctor and your body's toxic and you have all these symptoms because you're not functioning well, and the petrochemicals, by the way, are hormone disruptors, so they disrupt the production of your natural hormones. Thyroid, your female hormones, and men, the male hormones, your adrenal hormones, they disrupt your ability to produce them and to utilize them. So we get hormonal declines and imbalances. And women will notice this because by the time many women reach 30 or 35, their hormonal levels get imbalanced. Their periods, instead of being 3 to 5 days and mild, now they're 5 to 7 days and longer, 7 to 9 days, and they get clotting and cramping, and they get premenstrual symptoms with bloating, belching. They get breast tenderness, they get migraine, headaches. All these things are related to an imbalance in the female hormones, which adversely affect the thyroid hormone. All the hormones work together synergistically. So that's what happens when women get to be 40. And you end up going to the doctor. And has anybody ever heard this? Honey, you got to live with it. That's just getting older, Or you got 3 kids. What do you think? You're going to feel good? You shouldn't feel good at your age. You're 40 for crying out loud. That's ridiculous. I mean, I've had some of my patients tell doctors, where to go when they tell them that. You just got to learn to live with it, honey. I had one doctor tell one of my guests, we call our patients guests, there's nothing wrong with you that 2 days of shopping wouldn't cure. Can you imagine? Now, when I was in medical school, this is a true story. I can't make this up. My first year in medical school, we took physical history and diagnosis. How to take a history and do a physical and come up with a diagnosis. And the head of my medical school was dean of the school was named Chevis Smythe, Chevas Smythe, Smythe. Now, if he lived in West Texas, we'd have called him Chuck Smith. But he was from Boston. His name was Chevis Smythe. And he was the dean of the medical school. And he said, when you take a history, If when you take a history of a woman, she has more than one complaint when you review her systems, she is a hypochondriac and must be placed on antidepressants. So we got in my class, back then, this is, the 70s, so we had a handful of women, 2 or 3 or 4. It's mostly men. And all of a sudden, all the guys went like, oh, that, I get it. Now that's what's wrong with my girlfriend or my wife. I mean, she's just a hypochondriac, And that's the way, so you can imagine. So here the doctor goes out after being trained this way, and he's got his office open. A woman comes in and complains, has all these complaints, and he goes like, he thinks, yep, one of Chevy Smythe's patients, and I know what I have. Nurse Betty, bring me some Prozac, okay? And give me a sleeping medication, a little anti-anxiety. Bring me some Xanax. We'll get you squared away, honey. And I know 30% of you here are on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications. I know you have panic attacks. I know 30% of you are, statistically. I know that. And, it's a shame that doctors have done that, but nobody has medical problems, whether it's depression, mood swings, whether it's you can't think clearly, you got fatigue, or you got irregular cycles or premenstrual symptoms. Nobody has those problems because they are low in pharmaceutical drugs. Something is going on in your body that has to be corrected. So what is the most likely thing that needs to be corrected? What is the easiest, absolutely the easiest thing to correct that doesn't cost you anything? In fact, it saves you money. Your eating program. It's not a diet. Don't ever think of eating as a diet. If you do, you'll fail all the time because you go, I'm on a diet. I'm denying myself. You want to eat to live, not live to eat, okay? Now look here at Derek Godwin. Look here. Y'all know Derek? Derek, stand up. So look, stand up. October the 5th of 2018. How much do you weigh, Derek?
October 5th?
October 5th.
278.
278. That was just over 3 months ago. How much do you weigh now?
193.
Well, now here's what I want to say. Congratulations to you, Derek, for taking charge of your health. He got himself healthy and well on his own. There's nobody responsible for Derek's health other than Derek. There's nobody responsible for your health other than you. Your doctor's not, the government's sure not, your insurance company's not, your spouse is not, for crying out loud. Nor are you responsible for their health. Everybody's responsible for their own health. Before God, we're all responsible. And so we have to make some choices in our life. What are we going to do? Are we going to live healthy lives and be healthy? So people that are healthy tend to enjoy life better, right? I mean, this is really not rocket science. I'm not a rocket scientist, but I have found in my experience in medicine that people that are healthy are a whole lot more enjoyable to be around, enjoy life a whole lot more. They got energy, they got get up and go, they got vim and vigor, they got enthusiasm for life. They're people that are what we call live wires. That's what everybody ought to be, and I believe that God has given us the ability. I believe, in my day you say it all the time, God has given our body amazing restorative power. It will heal itself. You can't poison your body to good health. Put the right nutrients in your body. Now, most of us, like Derek had talked about, get hooked on sugar or the simple carbohydrates, which are just sugar. I mean, if you eat bread products, if you eat corn, if you eat potatoes and rice, that has a higher glycemic index than table sugar. It will raise your sugar level higher than table sugar will. Now, let me tell you how addictive sugar is and how addictive the proteins in grains are. They do a study with white mice and they give them cocaine. Boy, they run in there and, boom, we're gonna get some of that cocaine. We're having a good time. They're all dancing around, having fun, like mice do. And then next week they give them sugar. Boy, they're having a good time. They're looking a great time. And then they give them a choice. You can choose. You can go to cocaine or you can go to sugar. Guess where to the last mice they go? Or the last mouse? They go to sugar. Now, when Derek says for about a week he felt terrible, when you come off eating grains and sugar, and you cut out all your soft drinks and all that, your body is going to rebel. You're going to get nauseated, you're going to get headaches, you're going to get depressed, you're going to get angry, you're going to go, this can't be healthy. I feel terrible. And then you may go sneak something. You go, look, I feel so much better. My body must need bread and sugar. See, I feel good. Well, that's the way cocaine addicts feel. Cocaine addicts take cocaine and they come off of it. They go back and take it and go, I guess I just need it. And that's the same thing with the antidepressants and antipsychotic drugs. You get on them, they hook you on them, they go to the neurotransmitters in your brain, you come off of them and you get all kinds of bizarre thoughts and feelings. Please don't, anybody, if you're on antidepressants, don't stop them cold. You can't, because that's when big problems come, when you either start the dose, raise the dose, or stop them. Those have got to be weaned off very slowly. Just want to tell you that. So that's my disclaimer tonight. Although I don't believe in them, if you're on them, don't stop taking them, but you can get weaned off. You can get yourself healthy and well, and you can wean off of them, and you feel a lot better. So a program that you should first institute, and you don't even need a doctor. You don't need me or anybody around. It's good to have a coach, so I do believe everybody needs a doctor and a staff of professionals to coach you on a path of health and wellness naturally. So as you mature, you feel energetic and you get up and go, right? Without pharmaceutical drugs. Does that make sense at all? Okay. So that's what I believe. And so how is that accomplished? Healthy eating lifestyle. It's a ketogenic eating lifestyle, basically. We call it yeast-free. I called it yeast-free for years, and I was convinced that it was, because I had a allergy practice, and people with allergies always were getting bronchitis and sinus and asthma. They always were on a lot of antibiotics, and I had a lot of people come in, particularly women with recurrent chronic yeast problems, because they took all these antibiotics all the time. And so I read Dr. Crook's book about the yeast connection. I started treating people for yeast. But I'm convinced now that what really turns everything around is eliminating the grain products, because yeast grows on sugar. Grains are sugar. If you eliminate all those, and grains cause a host of other problems. There's a good book to read, Wheat Belly. You ever heard of that? Read that book. That's a good one. And so anyway, healthy eating lifestyle, which is ketogenic, which means what do you eat? You eat a lot of good fat. Remember, don't eat any fat. Fat in, fat on. Remember? Oh, what do we want you to eat? Here's the government. Oh, we want George McGovern and the federal government and all the senators to tell us how to eat. And they passed a deal and they said, well, you got to eat a lot of grains. And a little bit of some vegetables, a little bit of meat, and don't eat any fat at all. Well, in 1960, the percent of people in America that were overweight were 16%. Obese, half those people, 8% were obese. Today in America, 70% of the population is overweight, 35% is obese. That's because they don't eat fat, they eat a lot of grains, and grains get converted to sugar, and insulin turns sugar into fat. And then you get diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, dementia, joint muscle aches and pains, you get arthritis, you get eczema, you get psoriasis, you get kidney disorders, you get all the chronic illnesses that your conventional doctors treat you with drugs. And those drugs are toxic, so you're already toxic. So now they're going to give you drugs and you're going to get sicker quicker. It's a crying shame. So you want to clean up, you want to be healthy? Clean up your eating program and eat healthy. Just say, I'm going to eat healthy. And you get some resources. There are plenty of resources on. Look, there's so much online that you can out-doctor any doctor in the country. I'm serious. You can go and get PubMed and you can read articles, read the abstract. You can learn this stuff. Or you can go to a doctor who believes the way you believe, and you don't have to do all the reading, that coaches you. And that's what I believe you need to do. It's like you go to Coach Burt. Coach Burt coaches you. He doesn't do your business for you, but he coaches you on what he thinks makes the recommendations. He didn't put a gun to your head, except when he collects when you're behind on your payment to him. No. So, and then the second thing, you got to replenish your hormones. I believe that any person that has the signs and symptoms of hypothyroidism or low thyroid deserves a therapeutic trial of thyroid. Natural thyroid, not the synthetic T4, which some of you may be taking, which is an active thyroid hormone. It's inactive. It has to be converted in your cells to T3. T4 means there are 4 iodine atoms. That's an inactive. Here's the hormone, thyroid. Here's the 4 atoms, iodine atoms. That's T4. That's predominantly what's made by the thyroid gland. It goes into the blood. It has to get into the cells, and there's an enzyme that converts it to T3, the active thyroid hormone. If you're not able to convert it, one of the reasons you can't is because there's fluoride in the water, and fluoride poisons that enzyme. So I highly recommend that you get distilled. Your water should be, distilled. You need to distill your water, filter your water. That's really key and important. You can get reverse osmosis under the sink, which we use. Make sure you don't get any fluoride. Don't use toothpaste. Go home tonight and see how bad fluoride is. You know how you'll know? Pull out your I presume most of you will brush your teeth tonight. Get your toothpaste and look on this, turn it over where all the writing is, and look at the warning on your toothpaste. You know what it says? Has anybody read that warning? Huh?
Do not swallow.
Okay, here's what it says. If you ingest the toothpaste that you have on your toothbrush, if you ingest more than you have on your toothbrush, then call poison control or go see your doctor immediately. That's what it says on your toothpaste. Go check me. If I'm wrong, you can discount everything I've said. If I'm right, you go like. And you know what? And when I wrote my book, Hypothyroidism, Health and Happiness, I was researching about fluoride because I knew it caused problems. And that's when here I am, I'm 60 years older, so when I did that at 55, and I hadn't even read that on the back. It's on the toothpaste. But we give it to kids, and they put it on. When you go to the dentist, they go, "Can I give you some fluoride?" They ask me that. I said, "You got to be kidding me, doc." Really? I don't think so. And they've done studies. They don't. Guess what? In Europe, they don't use any fluoride, and their obesity rate and their overweightness is way down compared to the United States. If you ever been there, you'd be surprised how thin people are. And if you ever been to France, they drink wine and eat bread all day, and they eat pasta and all that stuff in Italy, and they're thin and trim. And it's not because they walk a lot. Well, you've got to walk 35 miles to lose 1 pound of fat. So that's right. You have to run 35 miles to lose a fat. You cannot exercise your way to a low body weight. Unless you want to run 35 miles a week.
Are you saying eat bread and drink wine?
Pardon me?
Are you saying eat bread and drink wine?
Well, the reason they don't is they don't have fluoride, so they don't have poison system. They convert their thyroid. So part of keeping a good body weight is making sure your metabolism is elevated, right? And then you want to balance out your female hormones. And then you want some vitamins and minerals to help you detox, and an exercise program is very helpful. And I don't mean you got to run a marathon. Go out and walk a couple of miles briskly every day. Get out and do something. Or jump rope. If you got a swimming pool, swim. Get out and move about. That's important for the mitochondria. If you have allergies, you can be tested for that. Allergies cause problems too, and about 20% of the people in this room have allergies bad enough they ought to be treated. 40% have allergy problems. If you got recurrent and chronic sinus or you got asthma, ma'am, you got allergies. You don't have to test. The reason we test is to determine how to treat, not whether or not you have allergies. Your history tells you everything. If you just listen to your patients, I was taught, no doctor thinks like this, but I was taught this. If you just listen to your patients, they will tell you what their problems are. But you have to know, you have to go back and revert back to before the current modern day medicine where you have HMOs and PPOs and they run you through like cattle, and you get 2 minutes with the doc and he does a blood test and tells you it's normal. Give her antidepressants and let's move on. Next. Okay. If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you've got 2 choices. You can continue being sick and tired of being sick and tired. You can complain, you can be gripey and grumpy. And let me just ask you, when you feel that way, when you don't have energy, when you can't think clearly and you get brain fog, when you don't sleep well, when you can't lose weight and you want to, and you can't fit into the dress you want to fit into or the pants you want to fit into, when you get recurrent and chronic, when you got irregular cycles, when you lost your romantic moods and inclinations, how does that affect your work? How does it affect what you do? Whether you're working away from home or at home, how does that affect your relationship to your children? How does it affect the relationship to your husband? How does it make you feel about yourself? Well, you have a choice. You can go around moping the dope and crying your beer and go like, shucks, you know, I'm just that way. The doctor said I'm just a depressed person. I got to take this the rest of my life. Or you can say, you know what? I'm going to take charge of my health, and I'm going to just say, no, thank you. I don't think I'm going that direction anymore. I'm going to take a different approach to health. I'm going to do something natural. I'm going to get myself a good eating program, get my hormones balanced, get on some vitamins and minerals. Most important is vitamin C, ladies. And then get on some exercise. I've got allergies, get those treated. I'm going to take charge of my health. I'm going to do a 180. Let me mention to you, I just came down this freeway here. I don't know what freeway it was. I came through Murfreesboro. What number is that freeway? 24? Imagine this. Most Americans are traveling down a freeway like that. I call it the health freeway, and they're on the wrong side of the road. The vast majority of Americans are on the wrong side of the road. Going the wrong way down a health freeway on the wrong side of the road. And what do you think is going to happen? They're going to end up running into something on an overpass, and they're going to get crippled or killed. And you've seen it. You've had parents. You've had friends. John was doing great, and he just keeled over dead. What happened? He didn't take charge of his health. It's happened to our parents. It's happened to friends. I've seen it happen to people. I had a great friend of mine. The guy ran every day. He was an ear, nose, and throat surgeon. He was thin and trim. He runs one morning, comes home, starts having chest pain. He's dead before he gets to the hospital. He's about 64. He looked thin and trim. But I know that he was not. I know this is that he had coronary artery disease, and I've seen people like him, and you do a coronary CAT scan on their heart, and you find all kinds of calcium on their arteries because they haven't been eating right. But he'd been running 6 miles a day, kept himself thin and trim, maybe ate somewhat right, but didn't take vitamin C, which is so critical to keep from getting heart disease. Well, you don't make it. All mammals make vitamin C for human beings, monkeys, and guinea pigs, and no animals have heart disease except for humans. I presume the primates do too, but I don't know. But I know other animals don't. So take vitamin C, 1,000 milligrams per 25 pounds of body weight in divided doses. That's the simplest thing to do, and you can read, there's tens of thousands of scientifically researched articles on the benefits of vitamin C in numerous conditions. And I've been a proponent of vitamin C since 1990 when I listened to Linus Pauling's work with Matthias Rath and read their books, and they convinced me, and I've been on vitamin C, 10 to 15,000 milligrams ever since, and I feel like $1 million. And it's not only that, I'm on thyroid and everything else. Men ought to be on testosterone by the time they're 45 or so at least. Anyway, my encouragement to you is take charge of your health. Instead of driving down the wrong way on that health freeway, do a U-turn, do a 180, and get on the right track. You'll enjoy life so much better. It'll be and you'll be so much more productive, and you'll feel good. And people will enjoy being with you, you'll enjoy being with them, and it'll make a huge difference in your life. So that's my encouragement to each one of you. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to exhort you. Any questions at all? Yeah, oh, I do here. Hold your, I sounded like I've just made a short putt on the putting green. I have 2 books I want to offer you. This one book is Do a 180, Take Charge of Your Health. Okay? I have these here for you. And then I've got, this is my first book I wrote, Hormones, Health, and Happiness. Now, does it look like I wrote this primarily for men or women? Huh? But see, what I did is I made sure it had a black cover on it, like this, so the guys could read it too and wouldn't feel bad about having it on their desk. Like they're sitting at the other guys. What are you reading there? So this is a great book. This talks about our 8-point treatment regimen, treatment of airborne, treatment of food allergies, airborne allergies, treatment of yeast, natural thyroid hormone supplementation, female and male hormone supplementation, adrenal treatment of adrenal fatigue, vitamin and mineral supplementation, and an eating program. So that's a great resource. And I wrote that book for you, Sue. I wrote it for you, Mickey. I wrote it for each one of you all. When you read that book, I've had women come back crying and go like, you did write it for me. That's exactly the way. And how did I learn all this? I just decided to listen to women. Let them tell me what your story is, what's going on. It happened to fall in by God's divine providence, fell into the right teaching and met some guys that knew how to help women get healthy and well, and it's been wonderful. I love it. So about 75% of our guests are women, 25% are men. I haven't really marketed to men, but here's what happens. Routinely, coach is a little different, but routinely, the husband I had a radio program for 15 years every day on the air. Husband would go like, honey, I met a guy yesterday, I got to tell you this story. I go through my reception room, this guy jumps up, hey, Dr. Hotze. Yeah, I'm Brent Brunson, how are you doing? We've been guests of yours since 2004. I said, why didn't you come by and say hello to me? It's only been 15 years, why didn't you say hi? Well, I brought my wife in here. And I said, well, tell me the story. And so he told me the story, and then his wife came out, Joy. And so I brought her back in my office. I filmed it. I do a lot of personal testimonies. And here was his story. He goes, he made his living selling Balfour class rings. You remember your class rings? Okay. He had the biggest Balfour retail shop in all of the country. There are 250. His was the biggest, all of the Houston area. So he sold Balfour rings. And he's out doing his sales one day. He's driving. He said, I heard you on the radio. And everything you said sounded just like my wife, Joy. So I called up Joy and got home and said, Joy, I'm taking you to the doctor. And she said, why? Because I listened to this doctor on the radio at Hotze Health and Wellness, and everything he talked about, you've got, I don't have anything wrong. He said, honey, every time I say a word, you're like a rattlesnake. Gonna bite me, and I'm not gonna put up with that anymore. I'm taking you in. And so this is 14 years later. Joy came in, and they're just a lovely couple, have done very well in life. And he, as a matter of fact, you've heard of George Strait, right? Being from Nashville, you got to hear George Strait. Well, he does George Strait tributes with his band. He is kind of a look-alike singer for George Strait. So he travels all over the country. He told me, now he sold his Balfour ring business. He told me, he said, George Strait, every time he sings, he gets $2 million. But I go out and they only pay me $30,000 for a gig. I said, that's still not a bad gig. Oh gosh. Anyway, that's so what happens is the husband will send the wife in. I said, well, how did you come in? About 3 years later, she said, honey, you need to get in and see Dr. Hotze. So about 80% of the men we have are husbands of the wives that come in. So anyway, thank you all for letting me be with you tonight, and I'll be glad to, if I have time, I'll sign copies of these books. Be glad to get you a copy, and would love each one of you all to have a copy of that book, both those. So yes, ma'am.
What kind of vitamin C? There's all forms.
You can get an ester C, or you can get liposomal vitamin C, but get an ester, which is a slow release. And vitamin C will enhance your bowel function. I'll tell you that. But most people have that opposite problem. I remember in talking to ladies, one of the questions, it's an indelicate question, but you're a doctor, you got to ask these things, right? How are you? I usually ask, how are your daily constitutions? That's a little more polite. And we'll go, regular? I said, well, how regular? About every 3 or 4 days. Every 3 or 4 days. Well, my doctor said it was normal for me. Anyway, so vitamin.
Let me ask a question, because I know you do have some questions. You got a question you'd like to?
It was just based on that, liquid or pill form.
You can use a capsule form, it's fine, and they do have vitamin C crystals, which are good, and it's 2,500 milligram per teaspoon. You put that in water and drink that. It's got stevia in it, it's fine. You can get that.
Does anybody in the group, I know a lot of people ask, like, how does it work? A lot of people have asked me, like, what do you do? How does the program work? Basically, you go to Houston, Texas, you go through a pretty extensive physical. You spend basically a day there, and then they come back and say, this is where you're at. For me, I was low on thyroid, low on testosterone, low on a number of things. They basically compound your vitamins and everything that you need. By the time you leave, they're sitting there waiting on you. You start, and so I take those in the morning. I take a few things at noon. I take some cortisol at noon, which helps with my adrenal gland, helps with stress, handling stress and the pressure of going at a hard level. And basically, I just take those vitamins and stuff every day. They do check my blood more frequently than most doctors, so I can adjust. So sometimes I'll tell Brandy or one of my nurses, I'm fatigued in the afternoon, I need to do this, and they'll say, let's look at your levels. And so it's kind of a constant adjusting to your body to fit your body. Okay, so for those people that are trying to figure out how it works, and as you can see, for the people that are using it, most of the people that I know, monsters that are going there because they need more energy. They're pursuing big goals and big dreams, and they need to have enough energy not to get tired, not to wear down. Or if you just catch yourself, just like I said, I call it swag, losing your confidence. I see a lot of men that I feel like, I'm like, man, the dude just lost his drive. He doesn't.
Well, let me explain that too, ladies. All of you obviously know of testosterone. That's the primary male hormone. Women make a little bit of testosterone too. And most women think, well, that just makes a man want sex all the time, but it's much more powerful than that. It affects your brain function, okay? It affects initiative, assertiveness, sense of well-being, self-confidence, mood, goal orientation, your drive, your directiveness, your decisiveness, and your analytical ability. Those are all brain functions. Just like the male hormone affects the neurotransmitters in the brain, just like the female hormones do. You know, you've been at times, certain times a month, and you know, without anybody ever saying it, you go like, something's out of whack here. My hormones just must be out of whack because I'm not feeling right. You know, and then all of a sudden you wake up the next day and go, you feel good. Well, that's a hormonal imbalance. When that does, it affects your neurotransmitters in your brain, and this happens to men. Testosterone also affects muscle tone, muscle mass, cardiovascular function, romantic moods, and inclinations. So as men mature, once they peak at about 20 to 25, and as they mature, because there are a lot of hormone disruptors, petrochemicals in the environment that adversely affect men as well, and if they're exposed to a lot of those, it drops much quicker, but by the time they're 40, their testosterone level is going to be about half what it was when they were in their early 20s. By the time they're 50, it's a third of what it was. By the time they're 60, it's a quarter of what it was. Well, you know, you see these guys, they get pasty. You know, the older guys, you see maybe your dad's friends, they're 60, they look pasty and kind of gray, and they don't have good color. Well, testosterone also affects the production of red blood cells. So inevitably, their blood counts go down, and they just don't look good, and their muscles sag, and they walk around with dowge or something. They're low testosterone, for crying out loud. And I like to say to men, and you need to know that because some of your husbands will experience some of that. And that's not a problem that they need antidepressants for, but a little testosterone go a long way to putting a tiger back in his tyke.
So I have two questions. So I do take levothyroxine. Can you ever get off of that?
Well, listen, if they put you on levothyroxine, you had a blood level that said you were at, which means you're in the bottom 2.5% of the range. I mean, to catch that, so you were having problems long before, and they finally said, well, it's low, but not low enough to treat. Oh, finally, now years later, it's low enough to treat. Levothyroxine is the inactive thyroid hormone. It's not doing you any good, sweetie. You got the same problems I talked about. You told your doctor, you said, but I still have all these symptoms. He goes, well, your blood's normal. So that means it can't be the thyroid. Well, he's stupid because it is the thyroid. You've got inactive thyroid hormone. It's got to get in your cells and convert to active thyroid hormone. So we've seen thousands of people, just like you, they come in on levothyroxine, Synthroid, or levothyroid, and they got all the symptoms of low thyroid, and their doctor told them, you got to learn to live with it. You're probably just depressed.
But can you get off of it?
Ever get
off.
Well, so if you've got problems with low thyroid, your thyroid gland's whacked. You may have autoimmune thyroiditis. I don't know without doing a blood test, but as we age, our thyroid, all our hormone levels go down. That's the aging process. And if you have autoimmune problems, it can happen much earlier than 40 or 50, and you have Hashimoto's. So you're going to need to be on thyroid, but you've got to be on T3 active thyroid hormone as well as the T4.
So one other question, your doctor friend who dropped dead of the heart thing that looked all healthy. So had he known, that he had coronary issues, you know what I mean, or whatever.
What would you have done? Well, what he could have done.
What could he have done to prevent dropping dead had he found out?
Well, probably he was low in magnesium too. And by the way, not only vitamin C, but it's important to take magnesium. Write that down. Magnesium, citrate or glycinate, you ought to be taking 600 milligrams minimally a day. You can't overdose on it. It also will promote good bowel function. You've heard of milk of magnesia like grandmama had? Well, it works. So magnesium is very important, particularly if you exercise and sweat a lot. And so this happens to runners. They're out running, and all of a sudden they get an irregular beat, and because they have low magnesium, it just goes into ventricular fib and it kills them. So it could have been on magnesium, but you want to prevent these things. There was a guy that came in, from one of your monsters came in yesterday. He was 32. I said, well, good for you. He said, well, I'm just not where I was. I'm 32, you know. I said, congratulations to you. Because now you're going to get on a program of health and wellness that's going to put you miles ahead. So when you're 60 and 70, you're going to look young, feel young, anti-aging. You're going to be in great shape. You're going to have friends of yours that are dying left and right. And you're going to be healthy because you take care of yourself. It's like this. Think of yourself. I mean, if you have a fine motor car, you want to keep it tuned up. You don't wait until you run out of gas to fill it up or till the oil chokes up the engine. You change the oil, you put air on the tires, you keep the brakes and everything working well. Make sure you got good spark plugs. You make sure that car is tuned up all the time. Well, if we take that kind of care of our car, why shouldn't we take that kind of care of ourselves? By the way, I would love to tell you, I want to mention something to you, and this is a complete aside. My wife and I went to Israel we left with Second Baptist Church. We went on Christmas Day and came back on January 6th, and it was a life changer. It was so phenomenal. Walking where Christ walked and walking where King David walked, and all the Abraham and all these, Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. It was just marvelous. It's safe. It was wonderful. It was a tremendous experience, and I highly recommend. I wish I had gone 30 years ago. I wonder how much different a person I might have been, because I would read the Bible, but I read it in black and white. But now I see it in Technicolor because I've walked there and I know what it looks like. It's phenomenal. I encourage you to do that if you can get it going with a group. Yes?
I have a question. When it comes to vitamins, are there better vitamins than others? There's so many on the market.
Sure they are. Okay, good question. I have a vitamin store, Hotze Vitamins. And the reason I started that store is when I got into health and wellness, people come up, I said, well, you got to get these vitamins, and here's the brochures, go buy them. And they're going to all this shop, they call up, well, what do I get? Do I get Nature's Made? Which side? I don't know what to get, which one to get. I don't know what to do. And finally, one of my buddies said, Hotze, why don't you make this one-stop shopping? So I can come in here and buy my vitamins here. So we have built up, so we have a store. Now, it's interesting. My dad asked me about vitamins, and I said, Dad, what do I know? I'm a doctor. And now I literally it's a multi-million-dollar vitamin store, and we ship all over the country. So that's a big change. We have 150 different products. It's called Hotze Vitamins. Well, for Crohn's disease, cut all the grain products out of here. Get rid of all grains.
No bread,
no bread. Just get rid of all that, and that can get rid of. We've treated people with a yeast feeding program come in when I had a guy came in one time, and his wife brought him in, and he was scheduled to have his colon removed in 1 week. And that was about 15 years ago, and he's fine. We just put him on a yeast feeding program, got rid of grains. Grains have gliadin and gluten proteins, and not only amylopectin, but another protein that destroy the villi, which are the fine hairs in the intestine, and lead to celiac disease and Crohn's disease and a whole host of other problems that most of these doctors don't know about. They go throw them on prednisone and all this stuff, which just compounds the problems. First thing I do is just clean up his diet. I get rid of all grains and all sugars altogether. And I don't know how long it'll take. It may take a month, it may take 2 months, but you'll see a dramatic change. Just on that alone. But you'll not have a doctor tell you that, because they've got all kinds of high-powered medicine that costs thousands of dollars. And the drug companies run medicine. That's just the cold, hard facts of it. They run medicine. Hey, what you do? Okay, what did people eat when they lived on a farm? Bacon and eggs and vegetables. Look, in my family, unfortunately, goes back years because our kids are all grown and, you know, our youngest is about 34, 35. No, yeah, she's 35. That's my youngest. That's why 35 and 40-year-old women all look just young to me, you know. The older I get, everybody in their 50s start looking really young. So our kids, and I notice some of our kids are better than the others, but they, you know, they'll give them cereal and they give them bread and everything, and I've got to write something on that. So my recommendation, what I would tell, and I've got to write a letter to my kids because I feel so strongly about it. You'd think they'd pick up on it. They all live in town, you know. But the more I study about it, and the more I study about wheat and grains and all that, the more convicted I get about its detrimental effect that it has on our health. And so what you do is just feed them eggs, for crying out loud. Have eggs, scrambled eggs, omelets, something like that in the morning. That's good and healthy. That'll fill them up, and they won't be hungry. You put them on, what happens is all these kids with ADHD, so they're eating tricks and trinkets. They got the dyes in them. They got the petrochemicals in them. They got the gliadin, they got the gluten and all that, all the wheat products. It causes them to go whack, the sugar levels, and they got ADHD. So instead of the doctor saying, well, I think what we ought to do is clean up their eating program, they go like, no, they have ADHD. You need to put them on Adderall or Concerta. And I guarantee you that's a gateway to other drugs. I've seen this in my life. It's a gateway. If your kids are on that, it's a gateway. I've seen it happen. They'll get up and the next thing they know, they're on those are amphetamines, for crying out loud, in a bucket. You know, you've heard of methamphetamine. Well, Adderall's an amphetamine. It's dangerous as it could be, and it will wire those kids. Remember, children's brain or people's brains don't mature until they're 22. So you're putting these chemicals in their brains, antidepressants, anti-anxiety, and all this. What's it doing to their brains? What about the mothers that are pregnant on antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication? What's that doing to the developing brain? You know it's not healthy. You don't have to go to medical school to know that's not a good idea. You know, if a doctor's coming up with one thing you got to use when you deal with doctors is common sense, and you got to get over this idea that just because a guy has a white coat on, and which I call a sacerdotal robe, which is a priestly robe, and he's got his stethoscope around his neck, you know, and he's got his scrubs on, that all of a sudden he's like God. I wrote about that in my book. I have a section in there about the doctors as God and how you can't look at them as a godlike figure. But that's the way all societies historically have done. Medicine men have always been the highest level in society, and everybody, they had a certain connection with God and they could heal you. With internet today, there's no reason in the world you can't be well educated on your health, natural, simple approaches to get healthy. There's just no, and you ought to take advantage of it. It saves you a ton of money. It'll make you a bunch of money too. You'll be a whole lot more productive.
Can you share a typical good day's diet that you?
A good what?
Day's diet, like what your day.
I tell you what I have. I get up in the morning and I have a cup of coffee with whole whipped cream in it. It's called Bulletproof Coffee. You can either put a tablespoon of butter, you can put a tablespoon of coconut oil in it. That's what I have. I have 2 cups of that with some stevia, which is natural sweetener. And I take my hormones in the morning, and then I get to work, and they have my vitamins out, so I have my morning vitamins with water. I routinely don't eat anything for lunch. I just never have been a lunch eater, not a breakfast eater to speak of. And then when I get home, I normally eat once a day. Then I'll have dinner when I get home, and it'll be, you know, a light dinner with, you know, we'll have maybe some cheese with dinner, or a good salad, olive oil, balsamic vinegar. I eat the same thing every day. I eat broccoli, spinach, and either steak or salmon. I about eat that every day. That's what I eat. And I feel good. I'm eating to live, and I can't hardly eat more than 3 or 4 ounces of meat. And I weighed 167 when I started quarterback at St. Thomas High School my senior year. I was a student body president. My wife was a cheerleader. We eloped after my senior year. We just celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary in September, and they said it wouldn't last. We had the last laugh.
Anybody else have any questions?
We're highly addicted. So,
Plus, they go to school, and what do they feed them at school?
yeah, so you can't just pull everything out. So what would you say, I go in and I start cleaning up, just pull out all the grains from?
I'd pull out the
It's
grain.
not terrible what I feed them for
Sure. Well, look, don't feel bad. Most people feed their kids and don't think anything of it. You think you're doing good. Get them whole grain bread. I remember my wife and I, when we lived in Austin decades ago, we bought whole grain and she would grind it. We thought we were being really grind it up, and man, she'd make that whole wheat bread with butter. Oh my gosh. Die for it. With honey? How could it get any better than that? You know, but one thing it has is as Derek mentioned, took him 7 days to come off of it. It attaches to the opiate receptors in the brain, and there's a big addictive feeling. I mean, they'll get grouchy. But guess what? You say, well, they're not going to eat here. I've had parents when I've told them, I used to do a lot of kids with ADHD when I did allergies, food allergies. I used to treat a lot of that back in the early 90s. And I tell the parents, we've got to clean through that. Well, they won't eat. They won't. If I give them that, they won't eat. I said, well, just see how many days it'll take before they eat that broccoli. You know, one day they didn't eat it. Oh, okay, they're not going to starve to death. Day 2, they don't want to eat it. Day 3, they're starving. They're going to eat that broccoli or spinach or whatever you put in front of them, they're going to eat it. But you can give them healthy food. And listen, I may eat a very plain diet. That's just a plain eating program. That's just what I do. But I tell you what, when I went, you can get a lot of great salads. You go to a delicatessen at some of the grocery stores, they have great salads, you know, all different kinds of salads with olive oil on them. I love that. Let me give you a warning, ladies. Some people associate gluten-free with grain-free. That's not the case. When you see all these products, the food manufacturers, gluten-free, well, it's made from corn paste, or it's made from rice paste, or from potato paste, which are higher glycemic index than even wheat. I mean, it loads you up with sugar. So, I mean, but they go, it's gluten-free. Well, it's really not the gluten, it's the gliadin, it's the protein in the gluten that causes a whole host of health problems, but it's also, there are similar proteins in these other products as well, plus they raise your sugar level. So be careful of that. Don't think, well, I'm eating gluten-free, I'm fine. Well, that's not fine. You want to stay off the grains. Listen, I'll be glad to sign some books too. If anybody wants them, you can take them. If you want me to sign them, I'll be glad to do that.
So let me say this, if you're here tonight, you know, as a coach of the Monster Producers, I believe in the whole person theory, which means our goal is to help you in the body, in the mind, in the heart, and in the spirit. When one of those dimensions is not operating at a very high level, to my opinion, you're fragmented. And we can't talk about your potential if we don't talk about all parts of your nature. That's
so key, and that's the reason that we invited Coach Burt to be our coach. I've had, I don't know, 10 or 15 over our career, different business consultants. They come in, you know. Great thing about Coach Burt, he's got his stuff online. It's there, you know. You don't have him come in once a month and we take notes and then forget about him. It's there so you can review and your staff can review. But I remember the thing that impressed me the most about him was when this is before I met him, we were looking at the videos at our leadership conference back 2 years ago. I can't remember, it was October something, 2017, maybe it was in the spring. But anyway, we were going through all the different things, and he had this deal on devotionals. What business coach has anything on Christian devotionals? I've never seen. I mean, look, I've been around a bunch of guys, high-powered guys, Vern Harsh, all these guys, high-powered. None of them have ever been open about their faith in Christ. And I said, I like that. That's what I'm going to associate with people that believe what I believe. That's why Coach says the most important thing you can do when you meet somebody, when they say, what do you do? Don't tell them what you do, tell them what you believe, right? Because then you know right away whether or not they can do business with you or not. You don't have to chase them, you know, for 15 months. You got them right there. Either they're interested or they're not. So I like to do business with people that believe what I believe, and Coach believes what I believe about Christ and his Christian faith, and I admire that and appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
All right. So if you're here, thanks for coming tonight, spending an evening with Doc Hotze. Will sign books and meet and greet you, and so we appreciate you coming tonight. Hopefully you get it for you.
Thank you. Thank you.